I will be live here in a second. Let me go live on Facebook. Dun, dun, dun. Group. All right, the webinar has started. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It is May 4th, Wednesday. I can't put time is flying, right?
Believe it or not, I know half the year's almost here. Summer, it's amazing.
Summer is calling my name. Okay. I'm going to introduce our guest today. I'm really excited about this. This webinar that we have today. I met Alex a few months ago, and we have a lot of companies that reach out to us that have different products and services, but I found what he and his company do to be probably the most impressive because of how win-win it is for everybody involved. So that's what really appealed to me most. And he might have his business partner joining. So
could be.
We're live. We're not perfect. We're human. Thank you. But let me just tell you a little bit about Alex Van Putten. He is the co-founder and CFO of PsycHealth, which is and I'll let Alex go into this, but I guess it's a much better alternative than the PHQ-9. That's probably the simplest way to set the stage. Alex brings both an entrepreneurial and senior corporate experience to PsycHealth. He was an SVP at Chrysler Capital, managing commercial investments, and was a co-founder of a successful arbitrage partnership that spotted a discontinuity in the markets. He is a principal of the Cameron and Associates LLC, a strategy consultancy where he advised Pearson and other top-tier global companies. And he was faculty at Wharton Business School for 20 years while building Cameron and Associates. So I don't like to bring just anybody on these webinars. And obviously with that type of experience, Alex is the real deal. And I am super excited for him to share with you guys PsycHealth and what this company has to offer. And as always, so we're live on Facebook. We have right now 8 people live with us here. So if you guys have questions, please ask in the chat box and I will moderate throughout. And Alex, I will turn the floor over to you. And
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for the introduction, Scott. And hello, everybody on the call. Delighted to be here. I'm going to share a couple of slides, Scott. Is that all right? Can I do that on this? Are you seeing the slide?
No, not yet.
Okay, I'm hitting share. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is us, and I thought as introductions go, I'll show you a few more people on the team. To give you some background, that's me. My co-founder is really a profiteer. He's the psychologist, very well known, and he's also was the CEO of Pearson Analytics. That's was about a $300 million division of Pearson Corporation in the UK. And Pearson was one of our consulting clients, which is how we got to meet each other. And about 2 years ago, when COVID hit, Pearson really took early retirement. He wanted to do something different. And we were talking about, he said, Alex, I got this test. I want to do like a mental health assessment that I can bring out to the public and that kind of thing. We were talking about it. And when COVID hit, I called him up. I remember it was a cold, sleety winter morning in March 2020. I said, all right, we got to do this. This is important. So that's how we got started with this thing, making this commercial. I'll show you where we already are. And he gave me a real insight into this business and what it's really about. And we are a mental health diagnostic company and also a treatment company for those that want it. And we were talking about our families early on over dinner, and he said, I said, my sister was schizophrenic. And he said, no, she was not schizophrenic. I said, really? How can you say that to me? You never met her. You don't know who she is. He said, no, she had schizophrenia. She just was not schizophrenic. That's the problem. We label people with a mental health problem. We don't label people with physical problem. We don't say Bill is cancer. We say Bill has cancer. So why do we do this to mental health people suffering from that? So that's how we got started. It was a keen insight to me about the labeling, and this really what we want to unwind with PsycHealth and our test SelfView. So some of the people involved with us are the Beck Institute, which developed cognitive behavior therapy back when. I don't know, Aaron Beck was the founder of it. Richard Haug was a primary care doc who's been advising us since the beginning about how to think about this for primary care and doctors in general. Jim Holdnack is a very smart psychometrician. He's developing VR technologies for the NIH to treat various kinds of mental health issues, which I think is really cool. Anthony Puente is on the CPT committee for the AMA. So he's been guiding us how to think about the CPT coding for this test and how doctors and make money on it, we make a few bucks. Dan Sokolowski is a professor in personality disorders and emotional intelligence. And Linda Girardi is a SAS person, a very smart IT person. So this is the issue, right? Better health, better mental health equals better overall health. And this is a CDC slide. And let me just draw a little bit here because I'm a professor from way back when, as you know. So this is the cycle, the sort of the doom loop, I call it, because it is that, if you think about it. So, anxiety, depression, mental health issues that are so common. The CDC just came out, so they think 50% of Americans suffer from anxiety and depression at this point in time. Given COVID, the economy, Ukraine war, nuclear war, climate change, all these other things that people are stressed out about, it's very prevalent. And this, of course, sets off a reaction in our bodies that sets off cortisol levels, fear-induced, our heart rate goes up, our blood pressure goes up, and these things then cause or else make worse heart failure, metabolic diseases. Kidney disease is highly associated with it. 30 to 40% of people with kidney disease also have depression. People who have a heart attack, if they're depressed, live 25% shorter lives than those that aren't depressed. And then these depressed people go to the doctor, get treated, but then they don't stick with their medication. Or they don't do the exercise, they don't do the dietary things they need to do. So the circle goes around and around, right? So that's what we want to try and break with this. So problem, doctors, I care about my patient's well-being, but I don't have the tools nor the time to effectively assess it. Patients, I'm suffering, but I don't know how to express it. I'm afraid that I'll be labeled as crazy or embarrassed. So this is the stigma that we're talking about, right? I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but I was talking to someone and they said, oh, I would never do therapy. I said, well, why? He said, well, what if one of my neighbors saw me leaving the doctor's office, the therapist's office, they think I was crazy. So I said, this is like a really 1950s way of thinking about this kind of stuff, but it's still out there. So we have to change this, right? That's what we're talking about at the present time. So that's what we're trying to break this loop. So this is, just to be quick about this is our test. This is what your patient holds in their hands. It is, we supply the tablet to you. There's no cost for you to start doing this. We supply the tablets, we get you set up with your own site. We use Microsoft Azure as our server, so it's the highest level of security. We're obviously HIPAA compliant. And so the patient just is handed this in the waiting room. And I love what Scott said in his note to you guys to get this seminar set up, is that it's a way to turn waiting room time into revenue making time. So, they sit there. This takes about 5 to 10 minutes to go through the test. It picks up all 30 conditions in the DSM-V, the Manual for Psychiatric Disorders. It is very sophisticated. It was developed with the NIH. They've invested about $8 million in developing SelfView. And it uses artificial intelligence and machine learning. So it is very sophisticated. It is to the PHQ-9 and GAD-7 what a Tesla is to a Model T. PHQ-9, as you all know, is a 9 questions, always the same, true, false. And doctors have told me in confidence that they all lie. I said, what do you mean they all lie? He says they all lie about it because they don't want the nurse or the receptionist who's going to grade their PHQ-9 scores to know that they're depressed or having an issue. So they just say, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. As a matter of fact, the CDC stats are that 70% of people go to their primary care for a mental health issue and 70% leave undiagnosed, which I found staggering, as far as the statistic goes. So This is your code. This is what you're going to live with in part. 96127 is a basic code that is applied. Medicare pays $24 for it. It is routinely paid for. I don't know of anybody who doesn't pay for it at this point in time because of the Healthcare Parity Act. And it is the definition of it is a self-administered automated test for up to 4 conditions. Each condition is reimbursed $6. So we do 13 conditions as of course. We can explain that a little bit later, but we always test for 13 things. And the testing for the 13 things with the artificial intelligence takes less than 2 minutes typically. So it's $24 for that. We'll charge you $10 for that. So you keep 14. We'll look at the numbers for you in a few minutes. And we do not charge if you don't get reimbursed. So there's no risk to you guys whatsoever for this. And there's other codes too. If you wish, there's a code 90791, which is a psychosocial bio visit with a doctor that is reimbursed $201 in 2022. It can be administered by a number of healthcare professionals. It is not applicable for psychologists nor psychiatrists, but it is open for other doctors. There are other codes in between this. One's $46, some are a little bit higher than that. 96127 can be billed 4 times a year or as medically necessary. So for those of you who are administering TMS, I was reading about what you're doing, and it seems to be 6 or 8 weeks of treatments. As they go through each week, you can go and give them the test. And what we'll do is if they come up with several conditions, you can just select out the conditions you want. So it takes them less than 2 minutes to do it. And so it's very much a diagnostic tool. It is used in the best hospitals, as I'll show you. So this is what it looks like.
Hey, Alex, can I chime in there for a sec?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Alex has done something very gracious here, and he offered for me to take the SelfView test, and it was very interesting, and it has different, I guess, conditional logic where if I'm answering them a certain way, it tacked on a few questions. It said, because I answered this way, here are some follow-up questions. And so I believe on the top right there, that's a QR code. And you guys that are watching this on Facebook and on Zoom right now, you can actually take this for free. And so, you scan this code and you'll be able to experience, what your patient would experience in the waiting room.
Yeah, just hold your phone up to the screen and it'll capture it and you'll be in your test. So you can take it right now if you want to.
And let us know in the comments where you are tuning in from. Where are you watching this from? We've got Christina, we've got Heather, Heidi, welcome. Nick, hello, Tawanda. Oh, looks like the QR code is covered by the video. Can we get the link? We will provide that.
Okay, yeah, we'll give you the link at the end of this. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
The video box. Okay. All right, well, we tried, but it's there. So we'll give you that code at the end of this. We'll let you take it if you wish to do so. So this is what the test looks like. This is how you interpret it. So before we talk about the test, let's talk about the interpretation. It's red, yellow, green, not terribly inventive, but standard protocol. Red is things that the test picks up that are of concern. So someone should be encouraged to seek treatment for that. If it's not something in your area of TMS, maybe it's substance abuse, something else, they should be encouraged to go deal with this because it's could have an effect on their physical health as well as their mental health. Yellow is something that is of interest, but not yet a concern. So the analogy that I always use is it's like being on the 10-yard line in a football game. You're almost in the end zone, but not quite in the end zone. So that's a reason to retest every three months or so, every 4 times a year to keep up with these people. Green means no issues. So this is what the test looks like. This is what you get. And I'll show you a more complicated one in the next slide. So this person took 4 minutes and 5 seconds to do this. They did not skip any items, which is good. The reliability score was 4 out of 4. So it grades reliability out of a 4 scale. It means that you answer the questions honestly. And so there's things in there where it asks you the same question over again in a few different places. And if you answer markedly different in one area than the other area, then it's deemed that you are not answering the questions honestly. So it causes a conversation with the patient like, hey, why aren't you taking this test seriously, right? So, and the test was complete. So this person was evaluation date anonymous because we're not tracking anybody at the present time. They have an indication, a yellow for PTSD and an indication for ADHD. All right. So here's some of the things they discussed: victim of traumatic event, enhanced traumatic experience, the traumatic event themselves, thought about the event, but it's not complete. So the person exited the test before they really got into how often do you think about the event and does it affect your life? Because PTSD is not just that you've seen something or experienced something once, it's do you think about it often? Does it affect your behavior? So it needs to be tracked that way. ADHD is interrupted others, difficulty waiting in line. Now, I got to tell you, I take this test all the time just to make sure if I can see, check myself. And I always get these two things. It always comes up the same way. Because, and I was talking to a friend who's a psychologist, and she said, well, you're from New York. What do you expect? You interrupt people, you don't like to wait in line, right? It's just a New York thing. So I think that's probably the case. So these are things that were tested, but not considered of concern, possible diagnoses that are there. Current depressive, major depressive episode was not enough information about that. So this is what the test looks like. Questions, comments? Anything come to mind?
Well, I mean, I could start it off. I mean, this is it's so amazing how they can boil it down to something so practical, like difficulty waiting in line and interrupting others. And I mean, unfortunately, the PHQ-9 is the only thing that I can think of to compare this to, whereas that just gives you a number. This gives you so much data, and it's just amazing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and in 4 minutes, which is the difference, right? So you've tested all these conditions, have these different diagnoses. Now, here's one that's much more complicated, a more disturbed person. Here's major depressive episode they tested for. I think this took them less than 10 minutes. Here are these words are symptoms that the patient answered. So this is how they answered the question. So we always say we don't ask about secrets, we ask about symptoms. So we don't ask, what did you see in your PTSD? That was upsetting event, right? What did you experience? We just say, did you experience this? With depression, we separate out state versus trait. So you can be depressed now because you got dumped by your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or you flunked an exam, or you lost your job, or whatever it is, you missed a promotion. But that's okay, that's going to pass. So it'll pick that up and say, look, this is just transitory. If it's more persistent, this person had persistent depressive disorders, more than 2 years of sleeping problems. But it wasn't enough to say that's really what you need to be treating. You need to be treating the major depressive disorder at the present time. These people were off the charts for drinking. I don't know, 10 drinks a day. I don't know how anybody does that, but so anyway, whoever this is, I don't know who they are. I just hope they're not driving on the roads. Generalized anxiety disorder, worried a lot, tense, but again, it was yellow, so something to be tracked. This is more under generalized anxiety disorder. These answers were part of that. Poor sleep, impaired functioning, anxiety occurred while drug-free, irritable, difficulty concentrating, post-traumatic stress disorder, victim of a traumatic event, but nothing more than that, so it's a yellow. ADHD, difficulty completing tasks, avoided long projects. And these are the ones that were tested, but were not found to be of any concern. So for billing purposes, we put in here that this box. So this is your box. So if I go back up here, what we put in, is the ICD-10 codes for issues that are red. So these are the ones that you can bill for very easily. You can bill for all of it, but these are the ones that have ICD-10 codes associated with it. So what the test does is, in the printout, you have a box to check that says, I checked this. So if anyone ever asked you, did you really talk about these things? Yes, I did. I checked it, I reviewed it. Here's my audit trail, so to speak, for those of you who are thinking about that kind of thing. That make sense?
Yeah, and we're actually getting a few questions.
Yeah.
So Tawanda says, if it can only be billed a few times a year, won't we run into an issue if other practitioners are also billing for this code?
I don't know. don't know if that would be the case or not. If you're linked together in EHR systems, I guess you can both share it, just like a CAT scan or something like that, but it's basically like a blood test. I think of it as it's the equivalent of a metabolic blood test, a panel. You know, you're going to test similar issues over and over again. So I don't know. I wouldn't think that's going to be a problem, at least in the beginning, but it could be down the road, I suppose. But you know, again, we don't charge if you don't get reimbursed. So, yeah, Scott.
I guess a follow-up question to that would be, when you said that originally that it can only be billed 4 times a year, is that per patient? Is that what was meant by that?
No, that's per patient, and it's 4 times a year standard. But if a patient, like in TMS, where you're treating them every week, I would think it's be completely legitimate to test them every week or two. Is the treatment working? So it gives you a map going forward. It also gives you a printout, a graph that shows you what the trends are in their treatment. So if you're tracking them for depression, anxiety, whatever, you would then get a graph that prints out what is happening with the person long term. So is this treatment being effective? Do you have to change it? Do you have to add medication to it? Whatever the case may be. And then also, when you have them come back in, they don't have to take the whole thing again. You just specify, I want to test for depression. That's all it'll ask you. But in the background, it will always ask for 4 things. So it'll test for depression, anxiety, PTSD, and ADHD, I think. So you get the $24 billing in that way. So we're thinking ahead here on this thing.
Yeah, I think that kind of answers the question, Tawanda, because she was asking about other practitioners, and I don't think it has to be other practitioners. It's per patient can be 4 times a year.
Yeah. Well, there's John. He's one of our associates. John is our head of sales and marketing in the Philadelphia area.
Hey, John, we are mid-live webinar. Welcome.
Hey, Scott, please continue. I apologize.
Good to have you here.
Yeah. So we're just going through the test, John. We're going through all that stuff. So this is the billing page. So what we did is we modeled a primary care practice with 1,900 active patients defined as seeing the doctor once a year. Of those, we said that 80% would complete SelfView, making them eligible for billing and reimbursement. And of the 80% that took it, 40% would have an issue that required subsequent follow-up, right? The CDC stats last year, 40% of people had an issue. Now it's 50%, but we didn't upgrade that. So this is the way this chart works is, you would, under those conditions, you would pick up $13,400 from the first assessment by testing your practice. Ongoing assessments billed at 4 times a year for those people, which is completely legitimate. It's another $21,000. And then the real money is an E&M bump, right? So psychiatry is considered an organ system for the purposes of E&M evaluation. So we provide the analytics to say that you have addressed the psychiatric issues of your patient. Again, this is from our advisor who's on the CPT committee, who said, you know, you guys aren't thinking right about this. You guys got money's in the E&M code. That's where you got to go with this thing. So that's what we did as a way to encourage you all to use it. So the E&M bump, here are the CMS stats for Medicare, right? So this is the percentage of patients, of doctors that billed 992 and 3, level 3, level 4, level 5, 38%, 57% bill at level 4, 4.2% bill at level 5. Here's the difference in what you get reimbursed by Medicare. Now, private insurance is a bit higher usually. Okay. So what this does is if you're billing 213 and you add SelfView to the visit, you can now bill 214 because it's a more complex visit according to the Medicare billing codes. You're now talking about not just somebody comes in and says, Doc, I got a backache. Okay, well, here's some whatever the medication might be. But the person also tests high for anxiety. Well, tell me about the anxiety. Is it about work, school, home? What's happening? Because that could be affecting your back if you're tensing up your muscles. So we should sort of talk about that. That allows you to bill a level higher, right? And that's what you do. I was at the Cleveland Clinic a few years ago, and every time I talked to a doctor, they'd say, "Are you depressed?" I'd say, "No." And I said, "Then what would you do if I'd said yes?" They said, "Well, we don't know, but we just have to ask the question." And I learned that's because they can move up the E&M code by 1 level by asking if I'm depressed or not. So we have taken this a lot more in a way that's audit proof, so to speak, by adding it up. So these three columns are additive. So what you're talking about is you're picking up about an extra $110,000 a year per physician in an average primary practice. Now, there's going to be some pluses and minuses to this thing, but that's basically what you should be looking towards doing. Any questions on this or comments on it?
Yeah, we've got a question from Brenda. So if we are running a cash pay clinic and don't bill insurance, can we just bill the client and they submit for insurance for reimbursement?
Absolutely. There's no deductible for taking 96127. So they can submit it themselves for the $24. Okay, so that's perfectly legitimate. There should be no issues about it at all. The general billing for psychiatric or mental health issues, behavioral health issues, we should probably call it, is becoming much more supportive of doctors using these tests. As a matter of fact, as you probably all know, that CMS requires the depression test once a year for the wellness visit. And there's a case just about ready to finish up in the courts called Witt versus United Healthcare, where it's a class action lawsuit saying that United Healthcare denied 67,000 claims for mental health over the years that they should not have done. And if they lose this, they've got to go back and repay for all those 67,000 claims and make up for lost damages and the other things. So this is like big money. So the insurance companies are running scared. It's called Witt versus United Healthcare, if you want to look it up, WIT. So, I mean, this is going to break open any logjam that still exists, but all the insurance companies are watching this thing with fear and trepidation as to what's going to happen to them, because they'll be next. So that's, any questions else on the billing thing? Sometimes people push back on and say, no, it's not possible, but what do you think?
Yeah, we have another question here.
Okay.
From Christina. How would this work for out-of-network providers?
I think, I don't know. I think you can bill the patient directly for it. You know, I look at the price and I think it's basically 4 Starbucks macchiatos. You know, it's like $24 is not the end of the world for somebody who wants to know more about themselves. And if you don't want to charge them for it, if you're out of a network provider, I'm not sure, can you bill for E&M codes? I'm not sure how that would work. Is that something that can happen?
Possibly, and I know a lot of our ketamine clinics are cash pay. So from a business perspective and a patient diagnostic perspective, and I'm not sure either. I'd like to talk to some of you guys who are watching this, who are cash pay ketamine clinics, if they could have not only cash income from the ketamine treatments, but then insurance income from from this test. I would think you could do both, but I'm not an expert in that. I don't want to pretend that I am, but we have done a lot of research into this. I've gotten a lot of feedback on it. And then here's a question on the numbers too, Alex. How many is this chart based on?
It's based on the basic stats for primary care. That's just what we looked at for primary care. So it's 1,900 active patients, right? The average primary care doc has a panel of 2,500 patients. Of those, 1,900 are considered active because they show up once a year. All right. We then said 80% of those people will complete SelfView, because that's what we've been doing in pilot studies that we've been running at this point in time. 80% of people say, yeah, sure, I'll take it. Some people don't want to do it, that's fine. But almost everybody takes it because it's so easy. And basically they're sitting there with nothing else to do in the waiting room except look at an old magazine. So why don't they just do the thing on the iPad, right? So it's not kind of simple that way. Of those 80% that take it, 40% we assume will be coded for a red or a yellow. That means they should be followed up on 4 times that year. That's what the middle box is. That's what this is. This is the 4 times per year, right? This is the whole 1,900 group, basically. This is the 4 times per year follow-up. And then this is the E&M bump. That's what this stuff is, right? Level 3, level 4, level 5. That makes sense? Because this is about, You guys make a lot more money on this than we do, but that's fine because we really want to change things. We want to make this a much more accessible. If we're successful, mental health is going to be a kitchen table topic. And that's what we're trying to get to. People aren't afraid to talk about it. They're not spooked about it. They're not embarrassed by it. So we think we want to make this a mainstream. And the way to do that is through doctors, because I'm a business guy, so I'm going to talk about operational efficiencies. You know, we sell one doctor and we pick up 1,000 potential patients for SelfView. So that to us is a very efficient way of doing business. And that's why we chose this path. Plus you guys get all the benefits from the billing for it. So why wouldn't this, it's a virtuous circle. We all come out ahead in this thing. The patient gets better care, you make more money, we make a couple of bucks, and society's a lot better off. So that's why we think about it in that way. Anything else come up?
Yes, so Brenda's asking, can this replace the GAD-7, Beck's depression inventory, as well as the PCL-5?
It covers all that and 27 more conditions. So my co-founder, Aurelio Privatiro, is the one who bought the Beck depression inventory from Aaron Beck years ago and has been selling it under the Pearson banner for, I don't know, 30 years or something like that. He knows all that stuff. So, and he says, yeah, the Beck is good, but it takes 20 minutes and it costs you, $7, $8. So why do you want to do that? You only get reimbursed for $6 for it. So it's a money losing proposition in that way. Plus it's slow and it's manual for the most part. Maybe it's been updated now as an automated system, probably under his Q Interactive. But other than that, yes, it does all that. Does 30 conditions. I think I have the chart there for what it does. Let me see what's down below here. So no, I don't. But this is where it's being used. So this is our list of hospitals. This is being used for research in these places. Harvard is doing a study now to see, our data now goes down at year 18. Harvard is testing this to see that it goes down to 14. So they haven't published their research yet, but they said it's going well. And so we believe that it's okay for parents to test their kids if they wish to do that, right? So it should be, and that from what I'm hearing, a lot of parents are concerned about what their kids are going through at the present time. So with the rates of depression, anxiety in kids in school. So down to 14 is okay. Harvard's going to come out with that paper. UCLA is using it now with Apple. Apple's trying to train the watch to pick up depression as you're spending your time during the course of the day through physiological markers. So they're using our test to validate the research they're doing and what they're getting electronically to see if it really tracks. So they're using ours as a way to corroborate that. So that's good news. And the other guys have used it. Yale, all these hospitals have been using it on and off, but it's always for research. So we're for the first time, we're making it available for you guys in the private market. So that's our job, right? So that's what we're trying to get to. So here's some survey results. The team is very responsive, professional, and easy to work with. They appreciate the individual needs of the program and are very flexible, innovative in the services they offer. We are very satisfied with the company and the product. Dr. Timothy Wylans and Dr. Huell at Harvard. Okay. Another couple of quotes. I could review the assessment and scores without a problem. 100% of the doctors strongly agree. Assisting clients with the assessment and tablet in the waiting room disrupted my workflow. 100% disagree or strongly disagree. So that's good. So it doesn't take up any of your time. Patients, I was able to answer the questions on the tablet without any problems. 93% agree or strongly agree. I think the self-assessment will help my clinician understand me better. 100% agree or strongly agree. So that's kind of where we are with this thing at the present time. So I'll show you how the test works. If that's, I don't want to do that. Okay, so let me go to, so this is, so this is the test, I think. Yeah, this is what your patient gets. When you click on the QR code or follow the link, this is what you're going to see. For a limited time, we're doing this for free. True. Here is what we covered as far as the coding goes, the red, yellow, green that we talked about. Try it, and we should be, here's the test. So that's how quick it is. And it is, continue, this is our disclaimer button, you're 18 years old. There's no consequence of misuse or survey, blah, 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 the usual stuff. And then we're into it. These are little tutorials people can take. Does not ask for any personal information, progresses to the next question, whatever that is. Click the next one, whatever. I forget what all the stuff is, but it's not important. So I enjoyed the weather. Rarely. Okay. When were you born? I'm going to say 2000. I wish. Male. Okay. On an iPad, you just touch it with your fingers, so it's better that way. I'm often depressed. I feel depressed often. During less, I felt hopeless often. I enjoyed life rarely. This is like a disturbed person, obviously. Sometimes, I believe Thursday came right after Wednesday. Yeah, always, I think. I felt very happy often, sometimes rarely. So this is how fast it goes. I'm just clicking on stuff just to show you how fast this thing is. Sometimes I felt nervous. How many panic attacks have I had? I had 2. Did you reach your peak within minutes? Yes. An unexpected panic attack seems to happen for no clear reason. Expected panic attack sometimes. Am I afraid of using public transportation? Well, if I'm in New York and taking the subway, probably yes, right? From the time I lived there. Am I afraid of parking lots or bridges? No, never afraid of that stuff. Tunnels, stores, movie theaters, no, not really there. Being in a crowd of people, well, it depends, could be. Sometimes I'm being outside of a home alone, maybe if I'm walking down a bad neighborhood. When speaking to large groups of people, sometimes, but not often. Eating and drinking in front of other people, nah. Party, social gathering, nah. Speaking to someone in authority, well, it depends. I guess sometimes. Avoid speaking groups, drinking in front of others, blah, 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 during the last 30 days. Yes. These aren't real answers, by the way. I had unwanted thoughts that bothered me sometimes. I'm just trying to show you how this thing works. I had unwanted thoughts made me feel nervous sometimes. I thought people were spying on me. Well, often.
Can I jump in and ask a question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, first a comment. So this makes it a lot more real than a PHQ-9 because it's just,
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable at bridges or in a crowd of people. So it's very real. It's not up in the clouds. It's very practical. And another question I have would be, so how were these questions, like these ones specifically that we're going through, how were they developed exactly?
Why? They were developed over the course of 5 years, and they were validated against something called the SCID, which is I forget what it stands for actually, but it is the Bible of Psychiatric Disorders. And so what we did is the developers of this thing came up with these questions. They tested them on people. They looked at what they thought was going to be. They then interviewed the people for a legitimate hour-long psychiatric protocol. Then they went to the SCID and said, can we match this to the SCID? The SCID said yes. So that's how it was developed. It took 5 years to do this, to get these items. There's 700 of these questions in the item bank. It will serve up as few as necessary to come up with the diagnoses that are relevant to the person. Okay, so if you're all green, 50% of people are all green. It takes them 2-3 minutes and it buzzes right through. The way it works is it asks for the 13 most common conditions like ADHD, depression, anxiety, that sort of thing. If it senses anything, like if I'm answering never for something, or if I answer I'm always happy, I'm never depressed, it'll stop right there. So this person's not depressed. If the person answers I feel sad often, okay, well that could be an issue. I'm looking forward to the weekend, no. Okay, well that's another issue. So then I'll start to probe into depression questions and go further and further down into the diagnosis. So that's the way it works. So let's see if we can get this thing to give us a printout. Sometimes I was repeatedly, there we go. Wow, traumatic event at work, that'd be bad. I thought about the event sometimes, rarely, always. I'm just doing this to get a diagnosis done. So let's just see, let's exit now. So if I don't want to go any further, I'm going to exit and it should give me a report. Okay, so here's what we did, 4 minutes and 37 seconds. 1 of 38 items were presented that I skipped. 1 out of 2 reliability. So it says I'm not really answering this this honestly, right? Because I'd answered some things wrong. What it does is it asks you, are you feeling sad? In one question in the beginning. And then a little later, it'll ask you, have you felt sad recently? And if I answer in a very different way, then it's going to say, this person's not really paying attention to this thing, which I wasn't, obviously. It's incomplete. So it says I didn't finish it, but here's the conditions that it came up with, and here's how it came to. There's the list that you would get as the doctor, right? Current depressive episode, incomplete, but it seems to be there. Panic disorder, incomplete. Agoraphobia, social anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, God, PTSD, anxiety disorder was not present. Possible disorder, including elevated mood, was not present. Not enough information to rule out or rule in unusual thoughts, substance abuse issues, alcohol use, that kind of thing. So it also does substance abuse. So it tracks for drugs, marijuana, that kind of stuff, and comes up with a diagnosis as to whether that's a problem or not. Truthfully, I've answered that I have a glass of wine every day. So it asks, do you have a drink every day? I said, how many drinks do you have a day or something like that? I said, one. And then it said, how often have you had that in the last 30 days? I said, 30. So it came up and it said, you have no alcohol problems, because that's a glass of wine is within scope of normal behavior in our society. So it didn't say, oh, this guy's got alcohol problems, because I don't. So, it's just a very, very positive test as far as its ability to track people's diagnoses as it comes up. So that's kind of where we are. Now, if we continued on with it, it would have taken a bit longer, but this was 4 minutes and 37 seconds just buzzing through. That's what it does. It is unlike the PHQ-9 as you can possibly get as far as what this does. It also allows you to bill for the E&M codes. PHQ-9 does not do that. It also allows you to bill $24, and PHQ-9 allows you to bill for $6. So, and it also doesn't ask the person to say, am I depressed? No, I'm not. It never asks you, are you something? It says, just asking symptoms. And from those symptoms, it puts together a diagnosis. It's a very different beast than what's out there at the present time.
Okay, we're getting a lot of questions, Alex, if I can share some.
Okay.
I'm going to start with Christina back up here. Christina asks, if a child goes through the testing and receives diagnoses, would the diagnoses go on their permanent medical record?
No, it's HIPAA compliant, first of all. As it is now, we're coming out with a direct-to-consumer version that'll only go to the consumer. And we did surveys as to how interested they would be. We sent out a statistically relevant survey to 300 people. We got back 313 actually out of the 300% said answer the survey, which was amazing. 75% said they'd be interested in taking the test, and 80% of those people said they would show it to their doctor. So that's what we want to have happen. People take it. The doctor's office is much a better place to do this, but we can also do it individually. We're thinking about it anyway. So no, there's no record of it anymore than there's a record of anything else in a doctor's file. Or if you do it individually, it just goes to you. It doesn't go to anybody else. So you can, if I were to click out of this whole thing disappears. If I wanted to keep a copy of it, I would click download PDF, and then it comes out as a PDF report. It's supposed to. I'm not sure why it's so slow. I have to ask the IT guys. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So you can keep this in your record. You can print this out, put it on your phone, whatever you want to do. Take it into your doctor and say, hey, doc, I just took this test and this is what happened. So as I said, for children, it does not go below. Our data is validated rock solid to 18. Harvard's doing a test to take it down to 14. They told us that everything looks clear as far as that goes. So we think it's valid down to 14 as well. It kind of makes sense. It would be. If it's good to 18, it's kind of good to 14. It's the same issues that crop up with people.
Awesome. A few more questions that we have here. So some concerns around what if the patient has already, say, gotten 4 tests from a primary care before they go to a TMS or a ketamine specialist? Is it really just best used during E&M evaluations?
Then I think it's up to you. I mean, I would think it's up to the practitioner involved. Do you just want to use it to support the E&M code? I mean, I'll be quite frank. The member of our advisory who's on the CPT code said to me, don't even give the doctors anything for the test. Just keep that all for yourself. and just let them live on the E&M code, because that's really where the money is for these guys. So yeah, I think that'd be a very relevant way to do it. Then it becomes a $10 cost to you if you're not going to be asked for reimbursement. But I would try the reimbursement, because I don't think that's going to be a problem at the present time. But as I said, if you don't get reimbursed, if you don't bill, we're not going to charge you for it. So it's fine.
Wow. Okay. And I think this may have been answered in what you just showed here, but do the patients actually see the possible diagnosis after they finish?
If a doctor gives the test, it's up to the doctor. If the patient does it at home and uses their own, goes to the SelfView site and does it themselves, then they're going to get this report. It's a little bit less stringent, I would say, than this, right? So some of the words will change. There's no ICD-10 code language. It's not relevant to an individual, but it'll give them pretty much what this is. And I'll tell you, I had a friend take it. He gave it to his kids too, and one of his kids came up with a social anxiety disorder, actually, looking at it. And she said, yeah, I don't think I have a disorder. I just don't like to do public speaking. And so I talked to the psychiatrist that we have working with us on this. I said, it is a disorder. That can be treated. There's good medication for it. It has no side effects. You just take the pill and it slows down your heart rate and your breathing rate, and you give your talk and you go home. Everybody's happy with the whole thing. Why wouldn't you want to call this a disorder and to have people to get you treated for it? And this girl, actually, this young woman was actually going to law school, where she had, play Clarence Darrow in the classroom and argue cases and things like that, which is very difficult for her. So we've thought about condition instead of disorder. We're sort of talking about that stuff. The psychiatrists that we have working with us don't want to do that. So, we'll see, but I'd be curious to see what people think about that. It's not meant to be threatening, but it is meant to help people understand if they do have something that needs to be treated or can be treated, or if this comes up all green. It takes 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes usually, and they come up, because it'll stop after 13 conditions. If you answer the first questions, I think it's 54 questions automatically come up. If you answer those without any issues, you're done. 2 minutes, good to go. You're in balance, carry on. If you have anything that's out of scope, then it starts to dig in further, and the AI takes over at that point in time.
Amazing. Okay, so Heidi is asking, what was the CPT code you mentioned that the psychiatrist or psychologist cannot do, but the other practitioners can do? You mentioned the reimbursement up to $201.
It is 90791 for a biopsychosocial visit. It can be done once a year per patient unless it's required more often than that. And it is not something that psychologists and psychiatrists can bill for, because the insurance, the CPT committee feels they should be doing this by themselves on their own. It's for medical doctors. It's a 30-minute, I think it's a 30-minute time requirement for it, but it can also be given by a nurse. So parts of it anyway. So here, this gives you your psychiatric part of the visit, right? It's the psychiatric part of it. The social part of it is you using this to say, so tell me what's going on with the panic disorder stuff. What did you see? What's happening in your life? And then the medical part is your medical part of the diagnosis. So it's there to be done. There's 4 or 5 other codes that are relevant as well. I don't remember the numbers offhand, but we're happy to talk to you about that.
Okay, wow. So 4 or 5 additional not talked about here.
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 other codes you could slip under into. I think 96101 is one of them. It pays $46. There's some other ones that you can also use to bill for it. And in general, the highest and best use of the analytics from a financial standpoint is the E&M code. But one level up picks you up an extra $35 to $40, depending.
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity. Part of what we try to do with all of you guys at Beyond Marketing is outside of our core business is help present to you other opportunities, vendors, things that you can do to enhance your practice. And this is such a win-win, because it's diagnostic for the patient without, like you said, being threatening. And then it's also, an upside for the business.
It's, as Scott said, my background, I taught at Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania for 20 years and done a lot of deals myself. This is the first time I've ever seen a deal where everybody comes out ahead. Better patient care, more income for the doctors, but saves money for the insurance companies down the road, which is why they're happy to reimburse for it. Saves hospitals money, and it's better for the whole society. If we're all walking around, we understand what we're talking about as far as mental health goes. We're not like, oh my God, I may be depressed. So, we'll see where it goes, but so far it's been very positive response to it. I even think, if I can say this, I even think it's something for dating sites to put on their sites. We're thinking about going there, like vet your date kind of a thing.
Maybe another vertical for that one.
Maybe
but-
another vertical for that. I think so,
Awesome.
Scott. I think we can
Yeah.
do another vertical.
So
that
another
correct?
question, here, onboarding. Let's say that, someone's interested in implementing this for their clinic, their medical practice. What does the onboarding process look like with your company, Alex? And then what is that client journey look like?
John is sales, and he's also doing onboarding with people, so he's on the call as well. We are talking with, we found some issues. It's very funny. Doctors sign up, and then they don't use the test as much as they should. And we're trying to figure out why that is. It's kind of like this free-floating anxiety about the thing. So we've hired a professor out of University of Texas who specializes in implementation science. So they may have an hour interview with her to see what issues may come up as far as the onboarding goes. We provide the tablets, as John's done this more than I have, so he can speak more to this. We set up the site, so they have their own site to where all the tests go. So, and there's really nothing to it. I mean, people that use it, the receptionist hands out the tablet when they walk in, when they get their clipboard of, the usual clipboard kind of stuff. Before we visit, they just get the tablet at the same time and they take it. Just, if you just ask them, look, this is part of your visit, take this, they'll do it, right? So that's the way we think it's most effective. John, you want to talk about that? You've done more of this than I have, actually.
Yeah, it's really the nice part about it is it is so flexible to customize for how the office is laid out. We did one onboarding where they had about 4 waiting rooms, rooms to see patients in. And that was a very nice setting because it was a little quieter. They were able to go in there. And like Alex had previously said, they're waiting in there for anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes at busy practices. So it's a perfect time for them to have their time and space, sit there and commit to, focusing on the assessment. However, we also just did a previous onboarding where they weren't seeing nearly as many patients in a really nice waiting room. And they just said, no, we're just going to do it right here. We're going to give them the clipboard to gather their information and then provide the tablet to do the assessment. As far as the busier clinics, we even had the iPad set up for iPad number 1 is in patient waiting room number 1, blue iPad, red iPad, green iPad. And those all funneled into one iPad that the doctor had so that they could actually live monitor each test, how far along they were in the assessment, and so on. So it's really the TMS clinic that I recently visited. Their waiting room was rather small, but the room where they actually treated with the TMS procedures was really nice. And they obviously had the chair in there to do the procedures and so forth. So they just said they were going to have a separate chair in there for them to do it that way, get them out of the waiting room, make it feel more as this is part of your whole treatment. So yeah, we can completely customize it to wherever the individual thinks they're going to have 7 to 10 minutes and and a clear space to do it. So that's completely tweakable. Yeah,
You can also send it out in advance, ask your patients to take it, send them an email, whatever it is, and have them invite an invitation to it. They can take it on their phone easily enough. We found in practice that there's a higher take rate if they do it in the office, because we've seen people come in and go, oh, doc, I'm sorry, I forgot to take the test. I meant to do it, kind of a thing. And then it's, it's kind of past at that point in time. We can have them do it on the way out, whatever it is. But we find the highest take rate is in the office. As a matter of fact, one hospital study was done and it was a 97% take rate in the hospital because people are waiting around, nothing else to do. So why not do this test, kind of a thing. So it's part of the routine onboarding process for those guys.
Great. Wow. Well, this has been super, super helpful. We're going to end right at 2. We didn't think we'd go the whole time. But,
There we go. I thought, yeah, great. That's
yeah.
good.
So how can people get in touch with you? You know, let's say that people watching live right now are watching the replay. What's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
It would be, I should have thought of this, right, John? It's john.duke, JOHN.duke. Let me type this down. Let me go back up here. So if I do.
We got to make you guys a booking link.
Yeah, really, I'll tell you what.
Put the website in the chat as well.
That's the best way to do it, is that, or you can contact me at Alex at, there you go. And Scott, you can send them out a link to take the test if they want to try SelfView. So we can do that. I'll pass it on to you, and then you can just pass it on to the participants in the webinar. Want to do that way?
Yeah, I already posted it on our Facebook Live and in our webinar chat. So you guys have access to that now. And great. Yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing. Like you said, this is so win-win-win for all parties. It kind of seems like a no-brainer. If I were a TMS clinician, I guess the one concern we do have, just to re-bring it up, is if patient A got tested by their primary care doctor once, by the time they get to the specialist, are they only able to do 3 more tests, or can they do 4 tests?
You know, I don't know the answer to that offhand. I think, you know, I get tested by different doctors for the same blood test, it seems, over and over again. Everybody gets reimbursed for it. I mean, it's just something you check on, right? So I'm not sure how to think about that, but I would imagine you can. It's a different diagnosis, a different patient. If you have this test, unless you're sharing EHR records, I don't know how you really find out unless the person walks in with a piece of paper. It's not practical.
Gotcha.
So I think it's perfect for TMS. I'm really excited about you guys. First of all, you guys are into science, you're into new technologies, you're into new things. I was with a doctor and he was holding on to his stethoscope for his dear life. And I said, you guys just hold on to these things. It was invented in 1816. I looked it up. I mean, this is your technology, you know, the stethoscope. These TMS people and ketamine people are doing new things, new science, the early adopters of new trends. So I think you're a perfect group for this, to bring it out and make it part of the routine practice. And let's lead with it.
Beautiful. Well, like I said, from the first time we met and you showed me this and you showed me the opportunity on all ends, I knew this was something I wanted to share with our network. So I just want to thank you, Alex and John, for being here today and for sharing with us. I'm going to get this man a booking link made so that when we promote the replay, anyone who's interested can go ahead and book with you guys and learn more.
That'd be great. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for setting this up, and enjoy everybody who's here. Appreciate it. You take care.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Scott. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.